how would you describe the key qualities of this European Silk Road, or maybe even European New Silk Road?
I think the basic idea behind it was that Europe lacks a bit of a narrative of a common project. A lot of negative news about European unity and integration, little positive prospects, and also given the lack of investment since basically the outbreak of the global financial crisis, and at the same time interest rates which are at the zero lower bound, the question really arises, well, why don't we actually invest into something that is important for our continent, that has the potential, on the one hand, to increase productivity, to maybe industrialize large sectors, especially in the poorer areas in the east of our continent. In the end, to connect people, to, as I said, give a positive narrative. And so we produced this report basically on called A European Silk Road.
And how would you describe the key qualities of this European Silk Road? How did you separate the quality and the conditions, the key conditions which set your idea apart?
It's a completely new infrastructure. So we're not talking about upgrading something existent or so, but would be a parallel new infrastructure of a high-speed rail network, basically, combined with a modern highway system that would also allow to set, for instance, standards in e-mobility, in autonomous driving. This could be then common European standards, which could be also relevant for the whole world.
When we speak about the new Silk Road or a European Silk Road, the question of what is also historically really in economic terms or even maybe in cultural terms, the new element. What is that for you? Like, what motivated you to say this is something really new also for Europe?
I think there is more than that. And I think such a huge project, we estimated costs of about 1,000 billion euros, which is about 7% of the EU's GDP or 8% of the GDP of the countries along these routes. That would also help, for instance, it would make it necessary for all the countries to cooperate on this. I think we need more cooperation in Europe, definitely. And it's not only about the European Union, it's about the wider concept of Europe, of our neighbors in the East, might never become members of the European Union, but nevertheless, we should engage in cooperation and in common projects. It's a European initiative, but I think one could explain it to the European taxpayers that makes sense, and that is something that would benefit all of us.
Why should decision makers along the Silk Road trust the European Silk Road? Trust
can be only earned by certain actions. If you start to connect yourself with others, then I think that will be seen as something positive. And if one would try to together define the standards of this technical construction and all the additional elements that are there, that would be also a way to actually learn cooperation on a specific project. It would be a manageable element that could actually maybe increase trust and also support the cooperation in other fields.
What kind of story or narrative would you tell these potential cooperation partners you mentioned of the European Silk Road?
It's about as many people, about 500 million living in that part of Europe and the adjacent areas like in Turkey, Iran, Central Asia. So we are talking about another time Western Europe, East. So it's really the eastern part of it, and but the income levels are low, and it should be in the interest also of Western Europe that these people earn more, consume our goods, that they can also produce goods and so on, that we interact also in economic terms, and that will bring also interaction in cultural terms and tourism and what have you. So this is not a zero-sum game. Everyone would gain from that. Yeah. Maybe there would be differences on a regional level. That is true. I mean, those would gain, particularly that are on the very close to the routes, and those who are further away might actually lose in relative terms. But the cake, so to speak, would be larger for everyone. And from an economic point of view, an argument should be taken into consideration.
What can Europe better than other stakeholders or political systems sitting on the global table?
Well, I think we have, with the European Union, we have a construction of an institution that has learned to find compromises, to organize complex multinational projects. That is something that we are really in Europe experts. Europe is home to some of the world's highest technological leaders in manufacturing industry. This is a big advantage also with regard to infrastructure construction. So I mean, there are a number of reasons why actually we should do quite a good job in something like that.
And when it comes to business and economics, how does the European idea of pragmatism, as expressed in the idea of the European Silk Road, differ from American or Russian or Chinese concept of pragmatism?
Everything is very complicated because we are a bunch of many small countries with different languages and very proud people. And I think we have the institutions, we have some starting point where we can work from.
When we speak about a European Silk Road, and what you just said, that Europe is different from this system, from other systems in the world. Which role could and should play culture and classical music or music in this idea, in your perception?
I would be obviously very much in favor if the physical connection of people would also lead to their cultural connection, which I'm pretty sure of. I mean, if you have really a high-speed rail, I mean, it must not even be faster than what high-speed rail can do today with today's technology, although I'm sure one could even increase that. But you know, if you could then just enter a train and just in the evening there is something in Paris, in the opera.
And what needs to happen to make your idea and plan of a European Silk Road a common European project?
Yeah, it's about convincing people, politicians, people in the European Commission. Obviously, if the next European Commission would take up this project as something that at least could be discussed, so you know that would be already very important for this to fly. But I mean, I have no illusions to this. But if it is something, a little push, not a big one, but in this case, a little push in the right direction, and the people actually start to discuss it. And I think there is something like a zeitgeist probably, and so there is a potential for improvement. It is something that is good for the future of this continent. So the financing realistically is not really a problem, and so why not doing it? Yeah.
Are there any like specific, for example, political stakeholders which need to be convinced? Who could be interested in really like making this idea part of a strategic plan?
Well, I could imagine that the leadership of the next commission might be interested. That would be someone we don't know yet who that will be. As I said before, we are not targeting certain persons now, but I think it's about the critical mass of people who are interested in Europe, who want this peace project to really be a success, also in the long run, not in the past, but that this project has also a future. Yeah, if you believe that the world can be improved, and nothing is just given from heaven, and, yeah, I think it is worthwhile to study possibilities to improve the world.
How could the European idea of a European Silk Road involve the creative potential of stakeholders, people, for example, living in countries along the Silk Road?
Everyone is free to engage in discussions. I think everyone should do that, but we can't force people to discuss things, to develop plans. Let the doors open for others to join. And I think that could be a guiding principle also for this European Silk Road.